Mingla and welcome to MI Radio's Myanmar Today. I'm Michelle with the recent news and reports from around Myanmar. Wilson got the latest report on State Counsellor Aung San Suu Kyi inspects voter list in Nay Pyi Taw. Dr. Susan will give us all the details on Yangon makes progress in market upgrades. Chodhary has the details on Myanmar merchants request extensions of import schedule for grain grams. David has the full story on Myanmar takes precautious measures ahead of the possible COVID-19 second wave. All these reports will be coming up on Myanmar Today, but for now, let's take a look at what's happening in local news. The steering committee for successful holding of centenary for Myanmar's motion picture industry organized a coordination meeting at the Mingala Hall of Yangon Region Government in Yangon on Saturday. The meeting was attended by the steering committee's chairman and Union Minister for Information, Dr. Pimit, and members, subcommittees, chairpersons and members, officials from broadcasting media and movie theaters and guests. Speaking at the event, Union Minister said since May last year, arrangements for Myanmar film industry centenary celebration had been made. He also discussed the formations of a working group so that subcommittees, working committee, and steering committee can effectively cooperate. The steering committee secretary and Information and Public Relations Department Acting Director General U.A. Dred reported the steering committee works and arrangements for the centenary celebration. The Japanese government and its people donated 9.3 million yen worth of medicines and medical supplies to help Myanmar in the fight against COVID-19. And the plane carrying medical supplies landed at Yangon International Airport on Saturday morning. Japanese ambassador to Myanmar, Mr. Maruyama Ichiro, handed over the medical equipment to Professor Dr. Zhou Dantum, Director General of Department of Medical Research, and Dr. Zhou Kai, Deputy Director General and Head of International Relations Divisions under the Ministry of Health and Sports. This donation is the first batch out of the 2 billion yuan assistance for medical equipment and facility to help Myanmar's respond to the pandemic as part of the economic and social development project of Japan in Myanmar. The Japanese government cooperated with the Ministry of Health and Sports for malaria research and anti-malaria program before the outbreak of COVID-19 and also provided in upgrading testing laboratories during COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Deputy Director General, Dr. Zhou Kai, JIGER keeps providing the medicines and medical supplies in response to COVID-19. A relief flight of Myanmar Airways International brought back 170 Myanmar migrant workers who had worked at garment factories in Penang of Malaysia, and it landed at Yangon International Airport on Saturday evening. The Ministry of Labor, Immigration and Population, the Ministry of Health and Sports, and the local officials helped the returnees for health inspections and arranged for a 21-day quarantine. To bring back the Myanmar citizens who are stranded in foreign countries by relief flight and charter flights following the instructions of National Level Central Committee on Coronavirus Disease 2019. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs cooperated with the relevant ministry and Myanmar Embassy from the respective countries. The Myanmar Embassy in Kuala Lumpur cooperates with the relevant organizations of Malaysia per the instructions of Ministry of Foreign Affairs to send back the undocumented Myanmar nationals and those detained at cells by relief flight. About 69,000 fingerlings were reportedly released into the paddy fields to reduce the scarcity of the fish resources and ensure sufficiency of the local consumption. The fingerlings releasing ceremony was held in Chongbyo Township in Pathing District on 14 August. The service was attended by Aung Somo, the township administrator, the officials and staff from the relevant departments, and the officials from the social organizations. Dr. Kim Yonai, head of Township Fishery Department, said, quote, "By releasing the fingerlings, they can produce both paddy and fish at the same time. They're releasing about 69,000 fingerlings into 138 acres of paddy fields. Each acre of paddy fields will get 500 fingerlings and to aim at ensuring the self-sufficiency of the local people." For sufficiency of fisheries resources, the Fishery Department is releasing the fingerlings into the ponds and creeks annually. The department is also taking legal actions against illegal fishing to reduce the scarcity of the fish resources, end quote. That's all with the local news. And now we'll move on to our first report. As the deadline for correction or any other amendment in the voter list was expired on 14 August after 21 days of the release across Myanmar, which was on 25th July. State Counsellor Aung inspected the voter list in Nay Pyi Taw Council area on 14 August. Wilson will tell us the full report on situation of voter list in Nay Pyi Taw.
As the general election is set to be held on 8th of November, Union Election Commission has been working hard in making sure that every eligible citizen has their names written on the voter list. The voter lists were first released to the public on 25th of July in different places of Myanmar, and the public were given till the 14th of August to report on the voter list or correction to the list. Therefore, on 14th of August, State Counsellor Aung also went to different places in Nay Pyi Taw Council area where she inspected the voter list. The State Counsellor also came to Zayat Ward, polling station of Zabutiri Township, where her name was actually released. She briefly inspected the voter list and then she left after waving to the public who were waiting to see her. Uteba is the chairman of Zayat Ward Subcommission and speaking to Myanmar Radio about the situation of voter list for Zayat Ward, and he said,
In our ward, we have two polling stations, number 1 and number 2. The polling venues will be number 5 Basic Education High School, where polling station number 1 has 2,001 voters, and the polling number 2 has 2,040 of eligible voters. So this makes we have a total of 4,041 voters in this ward. If we are to categorize voters between males and females, there are 1,957 male voters and 2,084 female voters in this ward. So we have a higher number of women who will be casting their votes in the upcoming general election. We have first announced the voters list from 25th of July, urging the public to check whether their names are in the list or not, so that if there is mistake, we can correct those mistakes in time till the 14th of August. We have 1,757 people who are asked to fill the Form 3 request because their names were not included in the list, although they are eligible to cast the votes. We have another 87 persons who have refilled their forms with the Form 4C amendment as instructed by the Union Election Commission, and another 99 persons who are asked to remove their names from the voters list under Form 4 objection.
The reason why the voter list to fill the Form 4 objection is their names have been released twice in two different places, probably where they originally come and their current place. So as they can only cast the votes once, they need to remove their names from the voter list where they don't currently reside, or they will not be going there to cast the votes. So it has mostly to do with migrant workers from both the government sectors and private sectors, but sometimes it can also be due to the person who has already passed away. For the place like Nay Pyi Taw and Yangon, where most of the people are employees coming from different parts of Myanmar, their names might be released twice, once in their native places and the other one in their current place. So they need to fill the Form 4 amendment to remove the names from one of the voter lists. But they still need to receive the documents from respective officials that their names have been removed in one of the polling places and they are to vote in where it is not removed. Uteba also explains more on the current situation of the public interest in casting the votes.
We have seen that the public are very much interested in casting the votes. We have nothing to do with their choice on whom to vote for. Knowing that they have to cast their vote on 8th of November, we're doing our best to make sure everything is right.
Tu Yiwin is one of the staff who is working at the Myanmar Today, and she came to see her name on the voter list, and she said,
I have no issue with my name in the voters list so far, along with all of my family. All of their names are included in the list. But I know some of my friends whose names are not included in the list, but we are working on it too.
That's a report on State Counsellor Aung Suu inspects voters list in Nay Pyi Taw. Under the guidance of the Yangon region government, Yangon City Development Committee is working to maintain and upgrade the markets within the municipal area of Yangon. There are 184 markets in 4 districts of Yangon, and the YCDC opened for market operator system at any market the investors want to invest in.
When shaping up Yangon in terms of urban characteristic, the role of traditional markets stands as necessity to place the emphasis. There are 184 markets in 4 districts of Yangon, which are identified as A, B, C, and D levels. There are also tax-free markets. In East District, there are 54 markets, including 1 tax-free market, 28 markets in West District, including 2 tax-free markets, 41 markets in South District, including 1 tax-free market, and 61 markets, including 3 tax-free markets in North District. Under the guidance of the Yangon Region Government, Yangon City Development Committee (YCDC) is collaborating with private companies to perform the upgrading of the markets. Nay Aung, member of the YCDC, explained about the upgrading system for the markets.
When upgrading the markets, we call for BOD system or implement by YCTC. When upgrading the BOD system, we call the private companies for tender. Then it is also necessary to negotiate between the sellers and the company, demonstrating what kind of market the sellers want and how the company can adjust. For every project, we are working under the guidelines of Yangon Region Government. We prioritize transparency, fair price, and sellers' agreement. At every market, we design market operator system. Some markets need immediate repair, and then we utilize our own budget. For the upgrading of huge projects, we have to take time with the legitimate frame.
Currently, Mingla Market and Damwe Market have already been contracted with the companies for upgrading. Udan Zenton, Deputy Director of Markets Department of YCDC, explained more.
At present, we are upgrading the Mingla market, and it has now completed 50% of the construction. Also for the Damwe market upgrading, the responsible company and the YCDC are working for area clearance and moving the sellers to the temporary market. In other market, the YCDC is carrying out maintenance within the allowed annual budget. Previously, the markets were only built on plain land, but now concrete floor is built and it becomes easier to clean the market.
In March of 2020, the YCDC has opened for the market operator system in the remaining markets except the currently upgraded ones. Until May of 2020, 14 companies have submitted the EOI expression of interest applications to invest in the markets.
Under the guidance of Yangon Region Government, we are striving to upgrade our markets in accord with international standard. We apply market operator system in order to reduce the expense from the annual budget. The companies can invest in the markets of Yangon, excluding the currently upgraded ones. 14 companies propose to invest in 16 markets. The committee forming with the relevant organizations, associations, and experts are to review the profile for the companies who submitted the EOI for further processes.
The proposed markets to be invested in are from Tinganjong Township, Line Township, South Oklaba Township, North Oklaba Township, Shuibida Township, Dobon Township, Mingla Downyo Township, Bahan Township, Dala Township, Lakeda Township, Dainji Market 4, and Sambia Night Market. YCDC is acting as the negotiator and supervisor between the sellers and the companies. As part of boosting the market facilities, during the outbreak of COVID-19, manpower was reinforced. 669 basins were placed at the markets, and 50 thermometers were distributed to the crowded ones as well. That's all about Yangon making progress in market upgrading.
That's the report on Yangon makes progress in market upgrades. Stay with us as we bring you more reports on Myanmar Today. Indian government announced a new policy statement on 22nd of May that the 400,000 tons of green grams from Myanmar would have to be imported during coming 3 months. In spite of having the short time for importing, only 100,000 tons of green grams can be imported into India.
The government of India has granted permission to import 400,000 tons of green grams from Myanmar in the next 2020-2021 fiscal year. But they re-announced a new policy statement on 22nd of May that 400,000 tons of green grams from Myanmar would have to be imported during coming 3 months. In spite of having the short time for importing, only 100,000 tons of green grams can be imported into India. Despite having the short time for importing, there is not sufficient amount of enough green grams for exporting, but nearly 200,000 tons to 250,000 tons of green grams in local market, according to Myanmar Pulses Beans and Sesame Seeds Merchants Association. Dr. Myo Lwin, the executive committee member of Myanmar Pulses Beans and Sesame Seeds Merchants Association, said,
In the import granted statement, the green grams can be imported into India until 31st of March 2021. But recently, they re-announced a new policy which stated to import the green grams into India on 31st of August 2021. The merchants supposed that the import duration from India should be extended. But there is no additional announcement till now from them. The merchants are trying to export as much as they can to reduce the delays during export. India is a main buyer country for beans, so the Myanmar Pulses Beans and Sesame Seeds Merchants Association submitted the request letter to the Ministry of Commerce and Indian Embassy to Myanmar to extend the import schedule.
The Indian Embassy invited the merchants for importing green grams, mung bean, and pigeon pea, and their businesses are still being conducted the inspection till now. And the license have not confirmed yet that COVID-19 hit the India seriously and imposed restriction on the restaurants, gathering, and festival. So the consumption of the beans in India also drops down. Uwin Nai, pulses and beans merchant, said Emma Radio about the current market conditions of beans.
The bean price jumps a little bit currently in the market. The prices of a bag of beans rise up from 45,000 jets to 58,000 jets. As the regular buyers from India are buying the beans, the green gram, pulses and mung bean are really good in sales in the market. The Chinese buyers are also buying the mung bean. Market for beans became alive till the last full moon day, but now it is really getting cold and stable. For the export, the foreign buyers come and buy the beans to the ground. That's why the prices are a little bit higher in the market. It is likely that domestic bean market will come alive again in coming danger. There is nothing left of mung bean in the local market, but it is replanted during rainy season. There were some difficulties in planting the beans as some regions faced the shortage of water without any rain last year, but now it is being replanted for the new season. The new beans and pulses will come up in the market just before October. This market condition for beans and pulses can be said well enough in comparing with other companies, and there is regenerated two-thirds of economic and social sectors.
India buys the green grams, which are mainly grown in Myanmar, other pulses and beans, pigeon peas. In addition to Myanmar, mung bean is also grown in Africa and Australia.
That's the report on Myanmar Martians requires extensions of import scheduled for green grams. Even though there may be optimistically view about the currently reissued case, with notice about the restrictions on gathering, Dr. Nay Pyi Taw, Director of Health Knowledge Promotion Division, stated in the report for how Myanmar is taking precaution measures ahead of the possible COVID-19 second wave.
As the state of COVID-19 outbreak has been varying day by day, the National Level Central Committee of Prevention, Control and Treatment of COVID-19 reissued a notice about the restriction on gathering that must not have more than 30 people. Even though the restrictions may be eased, certain rules and regulations has been ignored yet again by some people who won't take the situation seriously. Dr. Nay Pyi Taw added more about how people should be well aware of those circumstances and how each of the respective region and committee of prevention, control and treatment of COVID-19 has been handling those issues.
In
a world beset by the COVID-19 pandemic, denial is becoming an increasingly rare commodity, but even then there is still public ignorance about the virus left in some parts of the communities, where some people ignore the facts of how activities such as failing to observe the quarantine regulations, illegally coming through countries' border without COVID-19 screening and testing, and even simple acts such as not wearing masks or washing hands regularly could impact a load of unintended consequences. Regional Committee of Prevention, Control and Treatment of COVID-19 has also been working on to inform and educate each respective region to actually know and follow the regulations. Even though some patients have been discharged, some patients still need to be put in facility quarantine in facilitated medical centers to ensure that virus will not come back again, symptomatically or asymptomatically. Those facility quarantine patients are mostly quarantined in COVID-19 Medical Center, Paungji.
With regard to the current circumstances of COVID-19, it gradually turns into the recovery state of the first wave. Dr. Nay Pyi Taw also told MI Radio the situation of COVID-19 in Myanmar and how we should be cautious about the second wave, as some neighboring countries are still in somewhat critical state.
If we were to compare our situation to the past few months, Myanmar has been doing quite well in the form of controlling the disease, but it does not mean that we should be calm and unprepared. We must be well aware of what our neighboring countries have been facing, as we know that situations has not been that stable and controllable as of these few days internationally. We can't stay still. We have to prepare and prevent the possible second wave as much as we can.
U is chairman of Yangon Rescues Organization, and he has stated his perspective on the situation of currently reissued case with notice about the restriction on gathering not more than 30 people.
Even though I'm optimistic about the currently reissued case with notice about restriction on gathering, I still strongly think that people should still be well aware that the fight for COVID-19 is not finished yet. People should follow the guidelines of the Ministry of Health and Sports even stronger and better than before. Even if people could gather a little bit more than previous restrictions, one should at least be 3 feet apart when gathered and wear gloves and face shield if it's necessary. In the case of inevitable meetings that need to form and family dinner night at the restaurant, you should always know that prevention is always better than cure.
Until 8 a.m. on 17th of August, there are 375 confirmed cases, with 329 recoveries and 6 fatalities, according to the data released by the Ministry of Health and Sports.
That's a report on Myanmar takes precautious measures ahead of possible COVID-19 second wave. That's all we have for today's report, and it's time to check on some international news here on Myanmar Today. France is to propose that masks be worn in shared workspaces as the country grappled with the rebound in coronavirus cases that rose again in the past 24 hours to over 3,000. It said in the website update that the health ministry reported 3,310 new coronavirus infections, marking a post-lockdown high for the 4th day in a row. The number of clusters being investigated increased from 17 to 252. The resurgence prompted Britain to impose a 14-day quarantine for people arriving from France and led the authorities in Paris to expand zones in the capital where wearing a mask is the mandatory outdoors. Doctors have increasingly called for masks to be required in the workplace, while the HCSP, a body advising the government on health policy, issued a recommendation calling for masks to be compulsory in all common indoor spaces. Beijing Xinfadi Market, the large wholesale market that closed in early June after the COVID-19 cluster was linked to it, resumed wholesale operation on Saturday with the strict safety measures implemented. More than 1,000 trucks delivered some 13,000 tons of fruits and vegetables to 112 hectares market on Saturday, about 60% of its normal transition volume for fruits and vegetables. The market will be fully operational by September 10th, according to the deputy head of the Phang Thai district, where the market is located. To ensure safety, the wholesalers are required to register and make appointments on the market's WeChat public account and must also upload quality and origin certificates of their products. A 1,000 square meter retail vegetable market has been set up outside of the wholesale market to meet the demands of the nearby residents.
新发地复市后将取消零售功能，不再面向个人消费者开放，坚持市场的批发属性。在市场外新设了便民菜市场，满足周边老百姓的零售需求，加强市场的食品的检测，方便商户办理营业执照等相关手续。
Relations between China and the United States are at a crucial juncture, and efforts must be made to maintain and stabilize bilateral ties, Chinese Vice Foreign Minister Shan Zhihua said on Thursday. Chen made the remarks during a dialogue via video link with a group of U.S. Congress members, including Ami Bera, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Asia, the Pacific and Non-Proliferation, and Ted Yoho, who also sit on the subcommittee. Chinese State Counsellor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi warned last month that China-U.S. relations were facing the most serious challenges since the establishment of the diplomatic ties in 1979. That's all we have for today. Thank you very much for joining me on Myanmar Today. My name is Michelle. Wish you have a very good day. See you next time.